McCowan and Shannon back with you, and Shai Davidi of Sportsnet joins us just back from the winter. Well, I was going to say the winter meetings, but it was the GM's meetings, right? Not what they
That's
call
right.
it.
Yeah, general managers meetings and the winter meetings coming up a couple weeks.
Yeah, the fascination with the GM's meetings is they were so close to the end of the World Series, you almost couldn't take a breath, could you?
No, a lot of people were there. There were a lot of people who were breathing easy and happy that the World Series didn't go to a game 7 because that would have tightened the timeline even more. But because they were so close together, uh, teams couldn't really negotiate with agents at that point. Like they could have meetings and they could say, "Oh, well, we sort of value this person's akin to this," or we consider him as somebody who could be a multi-year guy for us, but they couldn't have any real offers or anything like that. So it made everything a little bit slower and there was just a lot more dancing than usual.
Now, I know you went to the GM meetings, but you were also complaining a little bit before we started that you couldn't really get a sense of what was going on because the hotel was so big.
Yeah, well, I mean, usually they're in a much more intimate resort, right? And maybe I
Yeah.
shouldn't be complaining about this publicly lest anyone hear it, but it's when it's in a smaller, more concentrated resort with fewer people in it, then you can see a lot more stuff and you end up running
Mhm.
into people a little bit more. But this was in a massive Vegas facility with a casino, with multiple restaurants. There were lots of places for people to hide and there were lots of places for people to be. Yeah, the general managers meetings was one of several conventions that was going on. So even when they were in the convention area, they were just sort of like a minnow in the ocean, and it gave it more of a winter meetings kind of feel as opposed to a GM meetings kind of feel, which is a little bit too bad.
Yeah. Did you run into anybody? Did you see
Oh,
any meetings take place?
well, not quite on the same scale. Yeah, I ran into usual agents, and you had to be a little bit more deliberate about who you were going to run into or make a contact with and meet up with. So there was a lot more planning and a lot more, connecting with people via text. And usually it's a little bit more in person. And that's always a little bit nicer, I think, in general, as opposed to doing things electronically. But, you do what you have to do.
Are you kidding me, Bobby? Intrepid reporter Shai Davidi?
Yeah.
He wouldn't miss a chance to find a manager, a general manager, or an agent. Come on.
I get it. These meetings are sort of a setup, for lack of a better term. It's just GMs get together, chat a little bit, and then deals may come of what was discussed at these meetings rather than deals being consummated. And that's generally what happened here too.
Right. And there are also general manager meetings with Major League Baseball where they go over rules and procedures. And obviously this year was a little bit more intense with, the pitch clock coming in and some of the other changes that are going to be implemented next year, the no shift and all that stuff. But yeah, a lot of groundwork. I was down there with colleague Ben Nicholson Smith and we were talking, we're like, have the Jays ever done anything at the GM meetings? And I think I could be wrong about this, but I don't remember there being a transaction of note since back since I guess 2012 when they signed Mysore as tourists while at the GM meetings. So it's not often that something significant or substantial happens there, but there is a lot of groundwork that's laid, and it's sort of this is your chance to or the team's chance to talk to other clubs. Okay, are who's moving? What are the teams looking to do? What are our opportunities? And then once you get back from that, you sort of download and then start trying to execute.
From a Blue Jay perspective, the one thing that came out of those meetings, I assume, was the Teoscar Hernandez trade. Do you think they jumped too early on Hernandez?
No, I think they had a sense of what the market was going to be, and they figured, okay, we're going to make this move. And I think they needed to do this early, right? For a couple reasons. One, I got the sense, I think a lot of people had the sense that at the end of the season, that Teoscar's time was probably coming to an end. I mean, if you look at the roster, and you want to make some change to that batting order, where are you going to do it? And the logical spot is to take the most expensive guy who's 1 year of club control remaining And you can turn that into a different spot. You consider that, oh, you might want to open up a bit more right field for George Springer. It just seemed logical that Teoscar was going to be that move. And then, when you look at the return, and I've had a lot of people ask me about this, and I can understand because everybody remembers what Teoscar Hernandez has been for this team, but they look at the return and they're like, I don't get it. And when I look at that return, I just think, one of the assets the Blue Jays are bringing back here is the $12 million in spending room.
Mm-hmm.
Right? The market for Teoscar Hernandez was going to be relatively limited because of the salary, because he's coming off a down year, because there's 1 year of club control. Those are all going to be reflected in the return. And, the Blue Jays wouldn't have traded him to the Mariners if that wasn't the best return that they could get for him. So they gauged the market, they understood where it was at. And in opening up that right field, well, now they can go to the market and talk to other free agents and say, hey, guys, here's the opportunity. It's very clear. And they see it. And all of a sudden, the Blue Jays become a bit more interesting to players who beforehand might have been wondering how they fit the puzzle.
Are they
But
done?
it opens up a spot in the outfield. And what happened this weekend was that both Tapia and Zimmer were non-tendered, which probably doesn't connect necessarily with Hernandez getting traded, because I don't think either one of them is considered an everyday outfielder, and they really need an everyday outfielder to replace him. But Tapia had a pretty good year, had a real good year for him, and I'm a little surprised at that, although he could still sign with the Blue Jays. What do you think?
Yeah, I think they looked at that, and it was going to be roughly $5 million from Raimel Tapia, and can we do better for the $5 million than what Tapia is going to bring us? And Tapia had some great moments for the team. If you look at his overall numbers, there are a lot of empty calories in that package, right? There's a little bit all or nothing. There's no sort of real approach at the plate. Sometimes it feels like, but then every once in a while he'll drop this tremendous at bat on you, and you'll be like, where did that come from? Why don't we see that more often? But between the roughly $12 million the Blue Jays saved in the Hernandez for Swanson deal and the roughly $6.5 or so million that the Jays would have saved in Zimmer and Tapia, all of a sudden you have nearly $20 million to work with. So
Yeah.
do better with that money than what you already have, then it all makes sense. And in an ideal world, look, you're taking that Tapia Zimmer, those two roster spots, and you're combining it into one player, right? You don't want a guy who's essentially a defensive only replacement or base running only replacement like Zimmer on your roster for the whole year. You want to do better with that spot. And, you want to do a little bit better with the spot than, you did with Tapia. But I think, the way it's set up, it's clear the Blue Jays are trying to find some help in center field. And Brandon Nimmo is the popular name. I'm not sure that they have that type of contract in them, but I can see someone like a Cody Bellinger making some sense for them if, they can kind of get that right and they believe that they can help fix the bat. Or there are certainly other opportunities in the trade market. And I still think there's a possibility that they deal a catcher to get some outfield help as well. So there are a lot of opportunities for them. They've got money to work with. And look, if it doesn't happen in the outfield, they can just pile that money into the rotation or in the bullpen or whatever the case may be. So they just have a lot of possibilities right now. They have room to get creative, where beforehand they were a little bit more locked in.